God's blessings on you today. The Lord is positioning each and every one of us more and more every day to learn how to trust Him, to learn how to know Him as your God, and to believe that all things are possible in Him as He wills. And as you're in His will more and more, you'll find that to be true for your life. And so we're striving. We are pressing into the Lord. We're pressing toward the mark of the high calling. We are reaching forward into what He's called us to, knowing that His will, the center of it, is the best place to be. It's the perfect place to be for the sons of God and for anybody who wants to serve the Lord. You want to find God's will for your life. You want to let go of the things that have been behind you, all that you used to be. You want to relinquish it unto Him, and you want to give God control over your life. That's the journey that you're on. That is what God has invited you to. And so in that we find our perfect peace. No matter what is going on, whether high times or low times, the Lord gives you access to His peace. And if you can't find it, it's either because you're outside of His will, or it's because He's wanting you to go after Him and focus on Him more deeply than you are. God is wanting for us to learn Him and to understand His love for us and to exemplify His love, to reflect His love, and to be more like Him in the earth. And that takes a shaping for you, because the person that you've been, the way that you've been thinking, your thinking process, the way that you've allowed your emotions to run your life, the way you've been raised and how the world has shaped you, your experiences and anything else along those lines has taught you the wrong things. It shaped you into the wrong way. And so learning to love like Jesus is something that is totally foreign from your soul. Learning to love in areas and ways that He's called you to love in action, it really takes you getting outside of yourself and focusing on Jesus and His will and finding contentment and comfort in that each and every time. So that takes a striving. That takes a stabilizing. That takes you standing on Him as your foundation. That takes you meditating on His word day and night, because as you take in His word, you are becoming more like Him. Your mind is being shaped into His mind, and He's ordering your thoughts. We understand with your thoughts, if you can even trace back your emotions at times of deep sadness or depression or emotional spikes, fear, and even joys and happiness, and times when you have just had overwhelming peace, or you have had overwhelming anxiety. If you go back and trace those times and those opportunities, you can go and find that there was a lot going on in your mind. And especially if there were negative emotions, those things that were going on in your mind were thoughts that you were supposed to control. You were supposed to redirect them to thoughts of the Lord. You were supposed to redirect those thoughts into how God wanted you to see a matter or perspective. You were supposed to take control of those thoughts and to submit them to the truth of God and put them under subjection to His way and His will. That's what you're supposed to do. And so as you are more mindful of your thoughts, then your heart and your emotions are going to follow. And you're going to find yourself, as you're putting this into practice, developing your spiritual muscles in this area, you're going to find yourself in greater measures of peace, having greater measures of access to the heart and the love of God. That's what we need. We need more of Jesus. We need more of His heart. We need to look like Him. We need to behave like Him. We need to know and have full comfort that He's near and with us. And that does take a greater focus in what you're supposed to be doing and how you're supposed to be thinking throughout your entire day. So yesterday we talked about how important it is for us to forget those things that are behind and reach forward to that which God has ahead of you. That's not to think ahead and worry about what's tomorrow, what's happening tomorrow, what you have to do tomorrow. Now, planning, like if you have to be like me and figure out what we're going to have with our coffee in the morning with discipleship, and you got to go and shop for that ahead of time, that's fine. But other things like, oh man, what if this happens? Or how am I going to do this? And where am I going to find the money for this? And what happens if this goes wrong? And then since I've got to deal with this today, then, oh my goodness, what about tomorrow? He says, no, tomorrow will take thought for itself. So we're mindful that we are not to put our heart into that which God is saying you have no control over anyway. You put your heart into the heart of the Lord and into the hand of the Lord, and he's in control. He's going to show you the way. He's going to open up doors for you that could not be opened any other way. And in that, he's teaching you to trust him more. In that, he's teaching you to believe in his will and to obey him, knowing that as you obey more, he's going to bless you more. He's going to give you more grace. He's going to strengthen your godly relationships. He's going to open new doors for you. He's going to give you more of his heart. He's going to change you in areas that you didn't know you could be changed. And he's going to make you more like him. So we're pressing, we're striving, and we're not ashamed of that. It doesn't matter what other people say. We do what we're called to do. We do what we're supposed to do every day. Even when your soul, your heart says, I don't want to do it. I don't feel like it. You get up and do it. Anyway, that's what striving is about. Anybody that runs cross country, for example, I can't imagine, because that was not my sport. I can't imagine that they just want to get up and run all those miles all the time when the coach says get up and run. But because that's what they do, even if their legs are tired or they're just over it because they ran so much the day before, they're going to get up and do what they are being called to do in the moment until they reach the finish. And so that's your job. You have a race to run. And in that, you're going to run your race continually, no matter what's thrown your way. We were talking Monday about how when you run, you get a stitch in your side. This is our Monday night Bible study with the ladies. You can get that pain in your side that, oh, okay, I'm just going to sit down on the sidelines, go bring me some water, some Gatorade, or something. I'm done. And normally when you get pain in your body, in your mind, and your emotions, that's your natural default. But it's important for us to remember and to regard the fact that all pain is not an indication that we are to stop and go the other way. If we're in the will of God and we are facing some measures of discomfort because he's shifting things and he's redirecting things, he's moving you because you've never gone this way before, and he's orchestrating your life so that you can have an expected end, you may and will run into areas of discomfort. He wants to clean up your life. He wants to change your heart. He wants to show you the righteous way and not just your right way. He wants you to put that behind you, and he wants to show you things that you've never known before. He wants to make your life a true glory unto his name. And he wants to make things good for you. And that process, because you are having to circumcise your heart, you got to remind yourself, circumcision does not feel good. When I had my son, and I already knew ahead of time, okay, this thing right now, praise God, is covered under insurance, circumcision. Do you want your son circumcised? Yes, ma'am, I do. Okay, we're going to do that tomorrow morning. And so we're going to get him prepared for that. Yes, this newborn baby that you carried for 9-10 months and that you just spent all these hours birthing out. You love him so much. We're going to go and circumcise him. You want to go? Absolutely not. Okay, Dad, come with us. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. That's not for me. I already know there's pain. That's an extension of me. I can already feel it ahead of time. I don't want to go through that. Circumcision does not feel good, and I don't want to see anybody going through that I love. It's not something that is desirable. There's no comfort in that, except the comfort that you know that as you endure the process, all is well. It's better for you. God is positioning you for greatness, for holiness, for his heart. And so the process of you actually enduring what God has you walking through it may have you experience certain measures of pain or just discomfort. And you have to be the one to pull back and buckle yourself in for the ride and let Jesus have control. I was telling somebody this morning, you like roller coasters, it's not always the best time when you can't see what's coming around the corner. You don't know if they're going to take you a shift and just go and take a left turn, or if they're going to have that high that high level of rising to just go down into a deep dip. You don't know. And that can be very stirring, emotionally stirring in a negative way. But when you actually experience it and you have the joy and the uplifting of the complete ride, you realize it was all worth it. And the person says, I don't like roller coasters. Okay, sorry, let me find another analogy for you. Okay, I like roller coasters. So for us, those who like roller coasters, and for others of us who just really enjoy processes of life, and then the rest who just say, I don't like change. I get it. Change means I no longer have the control that I had a moment ago. And I don't like to relinquish control. I don't like to be positioned in a place or in a condition that I'm not used to, that it doesn't seem like I identify with. I'm not familiar with it. That's a change I don't want. But many times God has shift you into different gears in your life that you have not yet gone to and through, in order to properly change you and cause you to trust him in the way that you have been supernaturally ordained to trust in the living God, the true and living God. He's positioning you for that. If you have the right perspective as you are going through the processes of endurance, I promise you, the Lord is going to bless you. If you have the wrong attitude and allow your emotions to take control, you're going to experience more pain. Somebody said that on Monday. You know, when you're going through contractions, if you focus and you just understand what's going on and you take your time to breathe and you listen to the instructions and you just follow what's being told of you, regardless how you feel, then it makes it a lot easier. If you scream and you just clam up and you clench your fists and you just really are just having a hard time and making all kinds of sounds, it's going to make the pain worse. Your blood pressure is going to go high. You're going to have more problems than what the process actually should have to go through. Same thing. Now, men, you may not understand that. All brothers, you may not get that at all. But understand that that's true about life. In order for you to experience the goodness of God, rivers in the wilderness, you have to learn to obey and to focus on Jesus along the way, because it doesn't mean just because Jesus is leading you that you're not going to have certain measures of discomfort. But what it does mean that when there's storms all around you, that Jesus is in the boat, and therefore his peace is accessible. His joy is accessible. His comfort is accessible. His strength, his affirmation is accessible. His voice is right there. His leadership, that's right there what you need. And so that's not only good news, that's great news. We talked a bit yesterday about Genesis 18, where Abraham has these visitors come, and the Lord had already conditioned his heart to be hospitable, to be one of servitude. And we see how the Lord blessed him to have the blessings of not just what God already had for his life, but of the glory that those who were anointed, if I say it that way, came under his roof and received of his hospitality. He was rewarding or blessing or receiving of the prophets of the Lord, the angels of the Lord, the messengers of the Lord. And as a result, as a part of his blessing, he received blessing for that. So it's important for us to govern our emotions and our thinking patterns as we're going through our day, because each matter at hand, each problem, each condition, every circumstance that you find yourself in, the way that you respond, the way that you react outwardly and inwardly, it is conditioning you. It's shaping you as to who you're going to be tomorrow for that next thing. You're determining your future today. And so you really, really need to pay attention to how you orchestrate your days, because there is a such thing as provocation. The enemy wants to provoke you to get off course. Your soul, generational curses, unclean spirits, the fowls of the air, they want to cause you to lose your inheritance. And if you're not aware of how active the supernatural world is, especially to the sons of God, then you're going to live life haphazardly, wondering why you're going through so much pain as a result of being outside of God's will, because you're not mindful of how God needed you and wanted you and called for you to, and had given you grace to work according to his heart along the way. So today or yesterday or tomorrow, last week, last month, and going forward, it's your job to pay attention to how you're responding to circumstance in the moment. In the moment. Because you can get all riled up and fearful. You can feel all impatient and driven and zealous and get anxious and decide that enough is enough and things are too much. And that will drive you to get outside of the Lord. And you'll find yourself in pain that you don't want. You'll find yourself in circumstances that you did not bargain for. But God has a better way for his sons and daughters. And Abraham is a great example of that, because God gave him a word. And he had to live out every single day. Imagine if you didn't encounter God every day. God is so special. He's so precious. He's so good to us, merciful. He gives you access to him every day. And that everyday access, the testimony of God in your life, it motivates you and your little soul in order to follow him tomorrow. The word that you get when you read the word, and he's stirring you up for motivation and strength and direction every day. Abraham got one word. He might have repeated it way later. And again, maybe another time way later. And every single day after he received the first word from the Lord, he had to orchestrate his days going forward according to the one thing that God said. We need to be like that. We need to be like the ones who know how to focus on the Lord, like the ones who understand how to set our heart and our minds on what God has said. That's going to give you peace. That's going to give you strength. Because if he speaks to you when he has, his voice has already released power over you and grace to live according to what he said. The moment you step outside of that, you're stepping outside of the umbrella of grace. And the moment you step outside of that, you are trying to operate outside of his heart and the power that he released according to that word. But when you can make decisions according to what he said, God, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to feel. I don't know what I should say. Okay, go back to what he said and make decisions according to that. Right in alignment with what he said, then you need to feel that way, this way. In alignment to what he said, you need to have these type of relationships. In alignment with what he said, you need to go over here. You need to direct your steps this way. No, according to what he said, in alignment with what he said, no, don't make that decision. I know it makes sense, especially according to the world. I know that this is legal. I know that you possibly could have some things happen for you by doing this, but according to this word, you don't operate this way. I know. You might want to do that. You might want to eat that. You might want to go here. But according to this word, this is your instruction. So Abraham lived his life according to that. And so the Lord called him his friend. Oh yeah, no, I can trust you. You trust me to that degree? I can trust you. We're called to that. So we see Abraham doing that. I want to share this word with you in Isaiah 40. Because this is what we see as a result of this account of not just Abraham, but Sarah, his wife, as well. And the Lord wants to teach you in this season how to operate according to the heart that's going to fall right under the blessings of Abraham. Not just something that is in the air hovering over you, but things that are going to happen in your life where you're going to know God is favoring you. You're going to see things falling in place right in time where you know it was only God that put it there just for you. You're going to fall in line as you take on this way. You're going to fall in line with the will of God as you learn. You're going to have more power on your words, on your voice. You're going to have more power with God and favor with God. And he's going to hear your prayers more. He's going to lend his ear to your voice more. You're going to find yourself having more access to his joy and his peace. You're going to be settled and rooted and grounded in his love. And it's going to carry you going forward. Isaiah 40, verse 31. Let's do verse 30 and 31. Isaiah 40, verse 30 and 31. Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. How is this possible? Running and not getting a stitch in your side? Walking and not allowing your legs to experience fatigue? What about your lungs? Don't you sometimes feel like just sitting back and getting a break sometimes? If you're having some type of forward movement, don't you need a break? Isn't there a natural process that goes on in life where you need to have a timeout, where things can get overwhelming, or you feel like you kind of reach your limit? This is what's happening all around you. You see people worn out and tired. You see people having midlife crisis. You understand what it looks like for people to be going through hard times where you want to pray for them. They're asking you to pray, but pray for me. They're reaching out to you on social media. They're having GoFundMes. Listen, God is saying that is not for the sons that know how to live under the stream of his glory as you obey, as you strive, and as you wait upon the Lord. They that wait upon the Lord. Listen, it says, even the youth shall faint, right? And be weary. You're going to get tired. In every point of life, everybody is going to feel like giving up, and feel like it's too much, going to feel like I need a plan B, and I'm going to do it. That's why they have all the clinics. That's why they have all the pharmacies. That's why they have all of the retreats, and that's why they have all the counselors. That's why they have all the hospitals. That's why certain career tracks will never run dry. Because people are in need of a reboot. They are in need of natural refreshing in order to, the travel agencies, they will never run dry. People are in need of help in these ways, mental and emotional satisfaction. But the sons of God, he says, I have a skirt for you. I have a place. Yes. In Psalms 91, he tells us, listen, he that dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under my shadows. Oh man, I remember that from when I was young, and even sometimes as in my adulthood, just being able to lay in the grass and just lay under the shadow of a big tree. How nice and calming and refreshing as the wind blows through your hair, across your face, and just you get to come in from the strength of the sun, and you hear the birds, and you see everyone running by, and even for me, I get to this most of the time, many times would be by the intercoastal, and so you smell the salt water and the water in the air. And the fish every now and then where I was can have leaping opportunities in the water. So nice. They that dwell in the secret place of the Most High will abide under his shadows. How do I have this when people around me are acting crazy? When things are going on in the news that are really sad and very scary? When you have children too, and you don't want that to happen to them either. When you understand what's happening in the work field, and you are not certain about how that's going to impact you. Everything. What's going on in your life? He says, I want to teach you my way. They that wait upon the Lord, you're going to have supernatural renewing of your strength. In the natural, we know that when you go to sleep, that's why you do need to sleep. When you go to sleep, your body has a natural regenerating process that occurs. So when you lose sleep, many times you're going to notice certain aspects of your body that start to break down. But as you learn to allow your body to have times of rest, that is the Lord's way that he has created for us in our natural bodies to experience renewal, restoration, healing. I tell people all the time, if they get a mouth injury, for example, just go to sleep. Rest. Don't do too much with it. And your mouth is going to heal itself. The Lord made it that way. The Lord made you that way. Just take some time to rest. If you don't get enough rest and you're sick or you're injured, then your body is going to take more time to heal. Your body heals when you're resting. There's restoration there. So for the believers, he teaches us to go into his abiding, and he gives us supernatural rest on the inside. He gives us regenerating power from the Spirit of God in us, and then that overflows to your soul, and that overflows then to your flesh, your body. He gives you what you need for your heart to be settled in the most strenuous circumstances. That's why he's not afraid to command you to strive. They that wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. Waiting seems hard. Whether that's just to serve the Lord and to seek him, to focus on him, or to wait on his timing for a thing. He's saying, as you set your mind on me through everything, no matter the distance, no matter the time, I'm going to flow into you what you need. And as you step by step learn to trust me in the process, in your journey, I'm going to give you more than what you need. You have access to my peace. You have access to my restoration. You have access to all things that are in my heart, because you are mine and you're hidden in me. It says you're going to mount up with wings as eagles. You're not just going to run or walk. You're going to soar. I'm going to do something miraculous with your life where it doesn't even make sense to you, but all because you obeyed me on this most simplest levels. You're going to experience joy. You're going to experience a heightening. You're going to experience peace. You're going to experience what others do not have access to. That which is impossible is for you. So I go back to Genesis 18 and I take a look at Abraham. Take a look at Abraham. And Abraham, as he is allowing himself to be free to serve. Hey, this is who I am. It wasn't something he had to push himself to do. He had already learned obedience in his heart. He'd already just been following the Lord in this way. He had already conditioned his heart. So now he is inviting these strangers into his home. And then he says here in Genesis 18, verse 6, and Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah and said, make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal. He's inviting Sarah, that which he has influence over in his home, to partake in this ministry, in this ministering, to partake of the blessing that comes in this transference. There's glory here. Hey, come on. And in her obedience, she does so. Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal. Knead it and make cakes upon the hearth. She didn't say, I don't know these people. I don't feel like doing that. Not in my house. This is our food. You don't see any rebuttals here. She moved quickly in the heart of submission and the acts of submission. You're called to that. Not behind the scenes saying something else, complaining under your breath, or telling somebody else on the side how you don't want to do it and how that's messed up. You're stealing your blessing from you. You are removing the covering from over you when you do stuff like that. God is saying, I have a blessing that I've given you access to. I want to show you how to get it. So make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abraham ran to the herd and brought a calf tender and good and gave it to a young man, and he hasted to dress it. And he took butter, milk, and the calf which he had dressed and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. He's standing. What is he doing? He's waiting. He's waiting on them. He's serving these people that he can perceive are of the Lord. At least that he understands that this is a circumstance that he needs to be very mindful and careful of. So even if Abraham did not perceive that this is a showing up of God, an encounter with God, we at least know that Abraham understood that he has a responsibility to honor God in all of his ways. And that's what he's doing. He's waiting on them. He is in position. What do you need? If at any given moment they need a paper towel, he's ready. At any given moment, if they need more water or milk, he's prepared. If anybody needs to remove their position and change it because it's too hot where they are, he's already positioned himself in his body, in his mind, in his heart to serve and to keep serving. Oh man, I already fixed their plate. What else do they want? Absolutely not. I already cooked all this time. Why do I have to do all this? Listen. If you want God to bless you, we're not just talking about a moment's momentum. We're talking about you going forward in a heart that's going to bless God continually. That takes a renewed mind. That's how you need to go into prayer. God, I need a renewed mind. You're not just performing the acts. You have to have the heart. Because the acts are just obedience. Submission is the heart. People may see you as submissive, but if God doesn't see your heart as submitted, it's not the same thing. So in verse 9, this is where we see that God released the word as a result of Abraham's position of body, mind, and heart. See, he's standing here. What comes next? What comes next? Now that they see what he's done and how he is and how he's positioned himself, now his actions are presenting before the Lord his identity. And that now opens the door for God's word over him. Verse 9, and they said to him, let's open this door up. Where's Sarah, your wife? And he said, behold, she's in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return to you according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah, your wife, shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. Now, Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. She could no longer have children. Therefore, Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure? And because, all these years, it would be such a blessing and a pleasure to have a child. I've watched everybody else with all the joys and the smiles and the events and the love and the comfort of having a child in their arms. I've even participated in raising some of them, but I've never had my own. After I'm waxed old, shall I have pleasure in my Lord being old also? I might need him to put the child on his back. I might need Abraham to help me carry some stuff. I might need him to wake up and feed the child or hand him over to me in the middle of the night sometime. He's too old for that. We are tired. And the Lord said to Abraham, wherefore did Sarah laugh? Why did she laugh? Saying, shall I of a surety bear a child which am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed, I will return to you according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. And Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, for she was afraid. And he said, no, but you did laugh. This was the covering of the Lord, the mercies of God. Nope. I know what you did. I'm going to speak it out. We're not going to hide it. We're going to uncover it. I'm going to put it right there so that I can cover what just was done and said in my word. There's mercy here. There's mercy here because her laughter released the spirit of doubting. And so, unclean spirits will try to hide by pretending that, no, I never said that. Or I would never do that. Or that didn't happen. Or I don't remember that. Or no, that's not what I meant. So the unclean spirits that are drawn to you as a result of the spirit of manipulation, your heart that likes to manipulate or lie, then unclean spirits of lying are attracted to that. Deception and rebellion and disobedience, those unclean spirits are attracted to that. All kinds of things we can name. The Lord did not want that available for this transaction. The Lord saw fit that his will would be done, so he uncovered it. Sarah, no, you did laugh. Okay. She understood. No, I was just scared. We're not going to leave room for the spirit of fear either, because if I just leave this alone, then unclean spirits of fear can try to govern this process. No, this is of the Lord. So what he does is he uncovers it and he says, no, you laughed. And then after saying that, he says, and this is what's true. This is a word that's going to be over it. This is what's going to cover and take precedence and govern this process, not your fears, not the deception, not the doubting, not the unbelief. I'm going to have control here. He says, no. Is there anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed, I will return to you. I have the last word. I'm going to say, I will return to you according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. My goodness, this was a hard situation. How in the world, how do you be in position of Sarah, or any circumstance that seems like God was not listening the whole time, or any matter that seems like you don't know what to do, or how is it even possible? What do you do in a situation where you believe you've heard God and you've been believing God for so long and it just hasn't happened? Isn't it natural that you will start to doubt? Isn't it natural that you would start to be discouraged? Yeah, we know how it is. If something is put off, if the response is put off, then you can get discouraged. So isn't discouragement normal, natural? I said, no, look at Abraham. They that wait on the Lord, you're going to have a renewed strength, supernatural restoration, power, and glory. You're going to be able to believe God. We don't see Abraham experiencing or expressing any kind of doubting or unbelief. God did not have that on record at all. We see the contrast, and we see God's response to that. And we see how God wants us to strive to have that character, that heart, that trait, that mindset. In that, you will have to fight the doubting. Think about Sarah. She's had to experience the looks of others throughout the years. She did. She had to experience the personal feelings of, what do people think about me? Or they're probably talking about me right now. Or I feel so inadequate as compared to everyone else. She had to deal with the thoughts and the feelings of people actually saying things on accident. They didn't even mean to be mean, but they may have said it without thinking how it would affect her feelings. Hey, when are you guys going to have a kid? You don't want one yet? Oh no, we tried. It's not the Lord's will yet. They didn't know how that was going to affect them throughout the years. The person did not mean to say anything that was offensive, but that was a seed of discouragement that was sown. Sarah had to bear all kinds of things. Offenses, rejection, and perceived rejection. She had to deal with her own thoughts and the darts of the enemy that would tell her that she's less of a woman, that she's not a minister, that you call yourself that, but maybe it was all in your head, that the Lord maybe showed you that in a dream, but who said that was the Lord? As a son of God, you're going to have opposition. You're going to have adversity against your ministry. Who you are, you need to know what God said. If you need to post it on your wall, if you need to make it your wallpaper, if you need to write it on your mirror and lipstick, I don't care what you need to do. Get some Post-it notes and put it on your computer desk. You need to do whatever it takes. If you need to rehearse it every day, if you need to tell somebody that's a good friend to remind you, whatever you need to do, you need to know what the word of the Lord is for you. You're going to have opposition against your ministry. You're going to have opposition against your identity. Sometimes it will come from the outside. Many times it's going to come from the inside. You yourself have a hard time being able to see yourself bigger and further than what you see when you look in the mirror. Even if you know how to tell people, you can easily say, well, this is my gifting, this is my calling. But when you get off to yourself, you already know how you really feel. Based on what you know your failures are, your shortcomings, based on what you know you deal with in your mind and the emotional struggles, you know what it's like to be in this body of yours. Sarah had some matters at hand. She had mindsets. She had developed emotions based on her personal experiences. So it makes sense for her to have doubted. It made sense for her to laugh in unbelief or disbelief. It made a whole lot of sense. It made sense for her to feel unworthy and that God had overlooked her and forgotten about her. She doesn't know these men that are here. So who's to say that she's supposed to believe them because she'd been hearing for years that it's going to be this way? I don't know, because I've been disappointed and let down so many times. And you know how that is. When you believe God was doing something in you, or that you were strong in this area, when you believe God was going to do something in a certain season and it never happened, or you reverted back, or things just got harder. Things didn't change the way you thought it would. How did it make you feel? That discouragement, it came, didn't it? Yeah. That's why he has to say, be of good cheer. He's overcome the world. That's why he has to tell you, only be strong and of good courage. Why? Because he knows that you have had experiences and emotions that have made you become discouraged. So Sarah is no different than you and I. And really, neither is Abraham. Abraham had matters at hand. He wanted a son. Why? What else would I do? And how else do I respond and have desires when God has made this great big promise about the stars in the sand? What I'm supposed to be looking forward to my own son, one who looks like me and acts like me, one who I can raise up to serve the Lord like me. He didn't have one. Times when people want to encourage him and say, it's going to happen for you. No. And it didn't. So he had to make a decision when these men stood by him and they gave him this word. And they directed their attention to Sarah to let both of them know out in the open, hey, we're not going to let fear and doubting take precedence here. We don't worship that. We're not going to allow for anxiety and unbelief to govern your life, your heart, nor this process. That is of the Lord. It's the Lord's word that's reigning here. He's the one that's covering you, and he's releasing power over you. Sarah, at this point, now has to overcome her thoughts and her feelings. Sarah, at this point, has to reckon with what God is saying versus what her own mind and heart wants to say at the same time. She has to make a decision. She has to choose her will or God's will. So she has to choose God's will over hers. And in the point, the valley of decision, when it probably was too hard for her to believe, God released the power of his word and says, is there anything too hard for the Lord? Can you imagine the shaking in her body, in her soul? Hey, let me ask you a question. In your situation, is there anything too hard for the Lord? You need to let that resonate with you. You need to allow the Lord to take you and push that into you, to impart great power and strength concerning that word for you, to drive you right into his presence, to believe God again, when now there's power in your prayer and you have favor with God so that he can release the blessing over you. Is there anything too hard for the Lord? And he says, at the time appointed, I will return to you according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Oh, no, there's no question about it. When God said it, that settles it. Your job is to agree and believe with all of your heart. It doesn't matter if he didn't remind you of the word. It's your job to remember what he said. Set your mind on things above. You commit your works to the Lord, and your thoughts will be established. That's your job according to the will of God. He's giving you what you need. He says, my grace is sufficient for you. He loves you. He loves you. You did not love him first. You did not decide to be here. You didn't decide to choose him. He did all of that without you. And he's doing it again today. He chose you for salvation unto his glory. So why wouldn't he do it for you? Especially as it's in his will. You just have to wait. Sarah was waiting for so long. And Abraham waiting for so long. With the right heart and levels of obedience and submission. They received the blessing of God in abundance and multiplication of that which with what he wanted to do. They received it, and they were able to have an overflow unto generation to generation to generation. Many generations to go. But they had to learn to wait with the right heart, the right attitude, a heart of submission. And so do you. So let's do this. May the Lord bless you and give you grace to walk in it, to run in it without growing weary, and to soar like eagles. In Jesus' name, God bless you.